3 emergency meetings took place in Miami last month. The attendees weren't discussing hurricanes, drug trafficking, or immigration. They were discussing Jamaica. Specifically, they were trying to figure out how a Caribbean island with fewer than 3 million people is about to completely upend the entire aviation economy of the Western Hemisphere, and why nobody in American aviation saw it coming until it was already too late. Right now, at this very moment, construction crews are working 24-hour shifts across 3 different Jamaican airports. Not renovations, not modest upgrades. Complete transformations that will reposition Jamaica as the single most strategically important aviation hub between North America, South America, Europe, and Africa. The price tag, $5 billion. That's more than the entire GDP of 12 Caribbean nations combined. That's 3 times what Denver spent building the largest airport in the United States. And that's just the beginning. American airline executives are rerouting planes. Cargo companies are renegotiating contracts. Tourism boards across Florida and the Bahamas are watching their projections collapse in real time. Because Jamaica isn't just building airports, they're building a bypass. A way for hundreds of millions of passengers and billions of dollars in revenue to flow around the traditional American aviation system entirely. And the most disturbing part for the United States, it's working ahead of schedule. Before we go deeper into how Jamaica is pulling off what experts are calling the most audacious infrastructure gamble in modern Caribbean history, this channel is on a mission to hit 10,000 subscribers by bringing you stories the mainstream media won't touch. If you want to stay ahead of the economic and geopolitical shifts reshaping our world, hit that subscribe button now. Because what's happening in Jamaica is just the beginning of a much larger story. Let's start with what they're actually building. Sangster International Airport in Montego Bay is getting an extension so massive that it will accommodate aircraft most Caribbean airports can't even dream of servicing. We're talking Airbus A380s, Boeing 777X jets. The kind of long-haul aircraft that currently have to stop in Miami or New York because nowhere else in the region has the infrastructure to handle them. Jamaica will. By next year, Norman Manley International Airport in Kingston is being transformed into a cargo and logistics superhub with direct connections to over 40 international destinations, not regional flights. International heavy cargo routes from Dubai, Shanghai, and Frankfurt. The kind of routes that currently funnel through Memphis, Louisville, and Miami. Kingston is positioning itself to capture that market entirely. And then there's the Negril aerodrome expansion. This one's different. This isn't about volume, it's about premium. Ultra-high net worth travelers who currently fly private into Nassau or Turks and Caicos will have a new option designed specifically for discretion, speed, and luxury. Jamaica is building a private jet gateway that competes directly with the Bahamas for the billionaire travel market. 3 airports. 3 completely different market segments, 1 unified strategy, and it's already changing the math for every airline that operates in the Caribbean. Here's why this matters. For the past 50 years, if you wanted to reach the Caribbean from Europe, you connected through an American city. London to Miami to Jamaica, Paris to New York to Barbados. The United States controlled the choke point. Every passenger meant revenue for American airports, American airlines, American customs facilities, American ground transportation. The system was designed to make American aviation infrastructure unavoidable. Jamaica is betting $5 billion that it can break that system permanently, and they're not doing it alone. Lufthansa is already planning direct Frankfurt to Kingston routes. British Airways is expanding London to Montego Bay frequencies to twice daily. Air Canada is adding Toronto to Kingston nonstops. These aren't small regional carriers. These are legacy airlines with massive fleets and global networks. And they're all betting that Jamaica can deliver what Miami has monopolized for decades. Seamless Caribbean connectivity without American complications. The implications for Miami International Airport alone are staggering. Over 30 million passengers move through Miami annually, and a significant percentage of those are connecting to Caribbean destinations. If even 10% of that traffic reroutes through Jamaica, Miami loses billions in economic impact. Hotels, restaurants, rental cars, airport retail, customs fees, it all evaporates. And 10% is a conservative estimate. But the real genius of Jamaica's strategy isn't about stealing passengers from Miami. It's about capturing growth that doesn't exist yet. Aviation consultants project that Caribbean air travel will grow by 40% over the next decade. That's roughly 80 million additional passenger movements every single year. The airlines and airports that position themselves now will capture that growth. The ones that don't will be left fighting over shrinking market share in an outdated system. Jamaica looked at those projections and made a calculated decision. They wouldn't compete for today's passengers. They'd build for tomorrow's. While the Bahamas focused on recovering from the pandemic, Jamaica poured concrete. While Puerto Rico debated terminal renovations, Jamaica extended runways. While the Dominican Republic added gates, Jamaica built entirely new airports. The speed of execution is almost as shocking as the scale. Normally, airport projects of this magnitude take 15 to 20 years from planning to completion. Environmental reviews, financing negotiations, contractor disputes, political interference. The list of potential delays is endless. Jamaica condensed that timeline to under 5 years. How? By making aviation infrastructure a national priority at the highest levels of government and treating it like a military operation rather than a construction project. The financing model is equally unconventional. Instead of relying entirely on government bonds or international loans, Jamaica structured the investment as a public-private partnership with revenue guarantees that attracted capital from Asian infrastructure funds, European pension systems, and Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds. The message was clear. We're not asking you to bet on Jamaica. We're showing you a guaranteed return in a market with verified growth projections, and the investors believe them. $5 billion in committed capital with minimal political resistance. That doesn't happen unless the math is airtight and the execution team is credible. Let's talk about what this means for cargo, because that's where the real money is. Passenger aviation gets the headlines, but cargo aviation is what drives economic development. Every iPhone shipped from China to South America could potentially route through Jamaica instead of Miami. Every pharmaceutical shipment from Europe to the Caribbean could consolidate in Kingston instead of Atlanta. Every perishable food export from South America to North America could use Jamaica as a climate-controlled waypoint instead of routing through Panama. FedEx and UPS are both expanding Jamaica operations right now. DHL is building a regional hub in Kingston. Amazon is reportedly in negotiations to establish a Caribbean fulfillment center on the island. These aren't speculative moves. These are billion-dollar logistics companies restructuring their entire Caribbean operations around Jamaica's new infrastructure. The employment implications are staggering. Airport construction is creating over 8,000 direct jobs. Airport operations will require another 12,000 permanent positions. The expanded tourism capacity will generate tens of thousands of additional hospitality jobs. But the highest value employment comes from hub operations. Logistics, aircraft maintenance, cargo handling, international business services. These are specialized skills that command premium wages and create genuine career pathways. Jamaica is already addressing the skills gap. Technical colleges are expanding aviation programs. Universities are launching degrees in airport management and supply chain logistics. International partnerships are bringing expertise from Singapore, Dubai, and Amsterdam. The country is treating workforce development as seriously as runway construction. But here's what makes Jamaica's workforce strategy genuinely innovative. They're not just training people to run airports, they're training people to think like aviation strategists. The curriculum includes modules on airline economics, route profitability analysis, and hub optimization. Jamaica isn't building a workforce that can operate infrastructure. They're building a workforce that can continuously evolve it. That matters because aviation is ruthlessly competitive. What works today won't work in 10 years. The airports that thrive are the ones with teams that can anticipate change and adapt before competitors recognize the threat. Jamaica is investing in human capital at the same scale they're investing in physical infrastructure. The recruitment strategy for senior positions is equally aggressive. Airport directors with experience managing Dubai, Singapore, and Amsterdam operations are being offered compensation packages that rival what they'd earn in wealthier nations. When you hire someone who successfully managed operations at Changi Airport, you're not just getting an employee. You're getting 20 years of lessons about what works in hub operations. That knowledge is worth far more than the salary premium. Now let's address the elephant in the room. What happens when other Caribbean nations realize what Jamaica is doing and try to copy it? The honest answer is they're about 5 years too late. The first mover advantage in aviation infrastructure is enormous. Airlines don't want to establish multiple Caribbean hubs. They want one reliable gateway with sufficient capacity and connectivity. Jamaica will be operational and proven while competitors are still breaking ground. But the bigger barrier is financial. Most Caribbean nations simply cannot raise $5 billion for airport infrastructure. Their economies are too small. Their credit ratings are too weak. Their political systems are too unstable. Jamaica had a unique combination of factors that made this possible: a large enough economy to justify the investment, a stable enough government to attract long-term capital, and leadership willing to make aviation infrastructure the central pillar of national economic strategy. The risks are real though. $5 billion is an extraordinary sum for a nation with Jamaica's GDP if passenger growth projections don't materialize. If a major hurricane damages infrastructure before it's fully operational, if a global recession craters travel demand, the entire project could become a fiscal disaster. Jamaica would be left with world-class airports and no passengers to fill them. The debt burden would be catastrophic. But here's what keeps American aviation executives awake at night. Jamaica's projections are conservative. They're planning for 40% passenger growth over 10 years when historical data suggests Caribbean growth could easily exceed 50%. They're building for 15 million annual passengers when demand could reach 20 million. They're not gambling on best-case scenarios. They're hedging against worst-case scenarios and still coming out ahead. The geopolitical implications extend far beyond aviation. As Jamaica becomes the natural hub for Caribbean travel, other island nations become economically dependent on Jamaican infrastructure. A flight from Barbados to the Cayman Islands might route through Kingston. A cargo shipment from Trinidad to the Bahamas might consolidate in Montego Bay. Jamaica doesn't just become an aviation hub. It becomes a regional power broker with influence over passenger flows, cargo movements, and economic connectivity across the entire Caribbean. That kind of influence translates into political leverage. When Caribbean nations negotiate with the United States, the European Union, or China, Jamaica's voice carries more weight because its infrastructure is essential to regional connectivity. Hub status isn't just about airport revenues. It's about geopolitical positioning in a region where every major power is competing for influence. The cultural implications might be the most underestimated aspect of this entire transformation. Every additional million passengers that move through Jamaica represents millions of cultural exposures. People discover Jamaican music, Jamaican food, Jamaican art, Jamaican philosophy. Global awareness of Jamaica expands exponentially. Cultural exports follow economic exports. Jamaican restaurants open in new markets. Jamaican musicians gain international recognition. Jamaican fashion finds global audiences. This cultural soft power has economic value that extends decades beyond the immediate airport revenues. A tourist who spends 3 hours in the Kingston airport might return 5 years later for a week-long vacation. A business traveler who connects through Montego Bay might choose Jamaica for a regional conference. A cargo executive who visits Jamaican facilities might recommend the island for corporate expansion. These ripple effects are impossible to quantify, but absolutely real. Now let's talk about what Jamaica is doing that nobody expected. They're not just building infrastructure and hoping airlines show up. They're actively negotiating partnership deals with carriers, offering incentive packages that make Jamaica operationally attractive beyond just the facilities. Landing fee discounts for the first 3 years of new routes, guaranteed ground handling efficiency standards with financial penalties if targets aren't met, co-marketing agreements where Jamaica's tourism board shares advertising costs with airlines launching new service. This isn't passive infrastructure development. This is aggressive market capture. Jamaica studied exactly how Dubai transformed itself from a desert backwater into a global aviation superpower in 30 years. They looked at how Singapore became the premium transit hub of Asia. They analyzed how Istanbul positioned itself as the bridge between Europe and the Middle East. And they're applying those lessons with Caribbean characteristics. The difference is that Dubai, Singapore, and Istanbul all had something Jamaica lacks: enormous capital reserves or state-owned airlines to anchor the strategy. Emirates essentially created Dubai's hub status. Singapore Airlines drove Changi Airport's development. Turkish Airlines made Istanbul indispensable. Jamaica doesn't have a national carrier with that kind of scale, so they're doing something even bolder. They're building infrastructure so compelling that foreign airlines have no choice but to use it. That's a higher risk strategy, but if it works, it's actually more sustainable. Jamaica won't be dependent on a single state-owned airline that could fail. They'll have dozens of international carriers, all with vested interests in Jamaica's success. Diversified dependency is stronger than concentrated control. The environmental strategy is equally sophisticated. Airport expansion typically triggers massive environmental opposition. Jamaica preempted that by integrating sustainability measures from day one. Solar power installations are covering 30% of energy needs at all 3 airports. Rainwater harvesting systems are reducing municipal water consumption by 40%. Indigenous landscaping is preserving local ecosystems while reducing maintenance costs. Electric ground vehicles are replacing diesel equipment. These are cosmetic measures. They're operational improvements that reduce long-term costs while generating positive public relations. And they're attracting a specific type of airline interest. European carriers facing intense pressure to reduce carbon footprints are actively seeking partners who can demonstrate environmental responsibility. Jamaica's airports will be carbon neutral by 2030. That's a competitive advantage that's only going to grow more valuable. The technology integration is equally impressive. Jamaica isn't just building bigger airports, they're building smarter airports. Biometric passenger processing eliminates traditional check-in lines. Artificial intelligence optimizes flight scheduling and gate assignments. Automated baggage systems minimize lost luggage. Mobile applications provide real-time updates on everything from security wait times to connecting gate locations. These technological advantages create operational efficiencies that translate directly into competitive advantages. Faster processing means more flights per day. Reduced delays mean lower costs for airlines. Improved passenger satisfaction means stronger brand loyalty. Jamaica isn't competing on price. They're competing on experience and efficiency. And in premium travel markets, experience wins. International development organizations are already studying Jamaica's approach. The World Bank is analyzing the financing model as a potential template for other small island nations. The United Nations is evaluating the environmental sustainability measures as best practices for tropical airport construction. The International Air Transport Association is monitoring Jamaica's hub development as a case study in strategic aviation planning. So where does this leave the United States? American aviation dominance in the Caribbean isn't ending overnight. Miami will still be a major hub. Atlanta will still handle massive connecting volumes. New York will still serve as a gateway to the Northeast. But the monopoly is breaking. For the first time in 70 years, there's a credible alternative, and alternatives change everything. Airlines now have negotiating leverage. If Miami raises fees, carriers can threaten to shift Caribbean routes through Kingston. If New York imposes new regulations, airlines can reroute through Montego Bay. Competition forces American airports to innovate, reduce costs, and improve service. That's good for travelers. But it's terrifying for the airport authorities and airlines that have operated without serious Caribbean competition for decades. Consider the strategic geography for a moment. Jamaica sits almost perfectly centered between North America, South America, and Europe. It's within a 4-hour flight of Miami, Bogota, Caracas, and Panama City. It's within 8 hours of London, Frankfurt, and Lisbon. It's within 12 hours of Lagos, Accra, and Johannesburg. That positioning isn't accidental. It's geographic destiny that Jamaica is only now learning to exploit. For decades, this positioning meant nothing because Jamaica lacked the infrastructure to capitalize on it. Now they're spending $5 billion to turn geographic advantage into economic dominance. And the math is brutally simple. Every hour an aircraft spends in the air burns fuel and generates costs. Airlines are obsessed with route optimization. If Jamaica can offer a geographic midpoint that reduces total flight time, even by 30 minutes, airlines will use it. Not because they love Jamaica, because they love profit margins. That's why cargo companies are so interested. A shipment from Munich to Sao Paulo that currently routes through Miami and adds 6 hours to total transit time could route through Kingston and cut that to 4 hours. Multiply that time savings across thousands of daily cargo flights and you're looking at tens of millions of dollars in annual fuel savings. Cargo airlines operate on razor-thin margins. Jamaica is offering them a way to cut costs while maintaining service quality. But there's a deeper strategic element that most analysts are missing. Jamaica isn't just building airports, they're building redundancy. 3 separate airports mean that if one goes down due to weather, technical issues, or operational problems, traffic can immediately reroute to the other 2. No other Caribbean nation has that kind of backup capacity. Airlines hate single points of failure. Jamaica is eliminating that concern entirely. The timeline is remarkably short. By 2027, all 3 Jamaican airports will be fully operational. Within 12 months after that, we'll have definitive data on passenger volumes, cargo tonnages, and economic impact. The results will either validate Jamaica's $5 billion bet or expose it as one of the most expensive infrastructure miscalculations in Caribbean history. Early indicators are overwhelmingly positive. Passenger growth is exceeding projections by double digits. Airline interest is stronger than anticipated. Construction timelines are being met or beaten. Environmental assessments are showing minimal negative impacts and several unexpected positive outcomes. Hotel development near all 3 airports is accelerating. Foreign investment is pouring into Kingston at levels not seen in 40 years. The revolution isn't coming. It's already here. 3 airports. $5 billion. One island nation betting everything that they can reshape the economic geography of the Caribbean. American aviation executives are scrambling to respond. European airlines are rushing to establish routes. Asian cargo companies are negotiating contracts. And travelers are about to discover that connecting through Miami isn't the only option anymore. Jamaica's gamble is paying off. The only question now is how dramatically it will reshape the entire region, and how long it will take for everyone else to realize the game has already changed. The Caribbean aviation wars have begun, and the smallest player on the board just made the boldest move anyone's seen in half a century.